With the Justice and Development Party, AK Party, failing to find a willing partner to form a coalition government, Turkey faces either an interim election government or an opposition-backed minority government until a snap election. Ahmet Davutoğlu, the leader of the interim ruling Justice and Development Party, AK Party, will return the mandate to form a government to the president during a meeting scheduled for 7:30 p.m., AK Party spokesperson Beşir Atalay told reporters on Tuesday. Following a top-level party meeting, he also said the AK Party would hold its ordinary Congress on September 12, i.e., before a potential early election. Davutoğlu, who has faced criticism for being an unsuccessful party leader, risks being replaced in the Congress. Concerned that President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan might avoid handing over the task of establishing a government to the opposition parties have called on Erdoğan give the mandate to the leader of the main opposition party after Davutoğlu returns it. If Erdoğan grants main opposition Republican People's Party, CHP, leader Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu the mandate, as is the usual practice in the past, the CHP leader will try to win the support of other opposition parties for a minority government to be established until an early election. In recent weeks, terrorist attacks in the predominantly Kurdish southeast have greatly surged, leaving more than 40 members of security forces as well as some civilians dead. Considering the security situation in eastern Turkey, the CHP favors an early election in April rather than in the coming fall. The Nationalist Movement Party, MHP, which rejected an offer to support an AK Party minority government until the early election, has not categorically rejected supporting a CHP minority government. In response to a question on whether the CHP would come up with a proposal of a minority government that would be in place until April, MHP Deputy Chairman Semih Yalın told today's Zaman, the MHP would give an answer in line with its principles. Yalın also underlined that it would better if the president hands over the mandate to establish a government to the CHP leader in line with established practices of Turkish democracy. But another leading MHP figure, Oktay Vural, who is the MHP parliamentary group deputy chairman, smashed the CHP's hopes for support for a CHP minority government, saying the MHP's answer to such a proposal would be no. Underlying that the MHP is against a minority government in principle, Oktay told reporters in Parliament on Tuesday the CHP should look to other parties in Parliament for support for such a proposal. The pro-Kurdish People's Democratic Party, HDP, has also announced its support for a potential CHP initiative in coalition-building efforts. The HDP is ready to consider all proposals by the CHP, İlhan Bilgin, HDP speaker, told reporters following the party's Central Executive Committee meeting on Tuesday. However, unless the CHP obtains the backing of both opposition parties, it is not possible for it to form a government. Generally speaking, a total of 276 seats, representing an absolute majority in the 550-seat parliament, are required to form a government. In the June 7 general election, in which the AK Party lost its parliamentary majority for the first time since coming to power in 2002, no single party won enough votes to form a government. The deadline for the parties to come up with a coalition formula, which Erdoğan recently said he would not extend, ends on August 23. The interim ruling AK Party and Erdoğan have been accused by the opposition of being insincere in coalition-building efforts and of pushing for an early election in the hopes that the AK Party could increase its votes. According to the constitution, the president can call an early election if a government is not formed until August 23. CHP Parliamentary Group Deputy Chairman Engin Altay called on Erdoğan to give the mandate to the CHP leader without wasting any time, expressing his misgivings, however, that Erdoğan might not do so. Altay also expressed hope that the MHP would not have a negative attitude towards a minority government to be formed by the CHP. Noting that based on other options the AK Party would be in control of the government ahead of an early election, Altay told today's Zaman, I don't think MHP leader Devlet Bahçeli would hand over Turkey's keys to the AK Party once again. There is a possibility that Erdoğan, in a blatant violation of democratic practices, will not confer the CHP leader the task of forming a government after Davutoğlu returns the mandate, Altay said, arguing that the CHP will thus not have the opportunity to forge a government. In such an event, after the deadline of the period allotted for coalition building by the Constitution, Erdoğan would call for an early election. A power-sharing interim government needs then to be formed as per Article 114 of the Constitution. All parties represented in Parliament would ideally get represented in accordance with their number of deputies in such a government, which would remain in place until the early election. In this scenario, a deputy to be appointed by Erdoğan would form the government. Impartial names, that is, independent people from within or outside of Parliament, would be appointed as ministers of the Justice, Interior, and Transportation departments to ensure the neutrality of the state during the election campaign period. There is no requirement for a vote of confidence for an interim election government formed in this way. The MHP has reiterated several times that it would not provide any deputies for such an interim government. If this scenario materializes, the ministries to be given to the MHP, possibly 3, would be handed over to independent persons. Following the meeting at party headquarters, HDP Spiljan, his party, would not shy away from being part of an election government. In such a case, the CHP is also expected to agree to join an election government, as it would not be the only party involved with a power-sharing interim government dominated by the AK party. The AK party, which emerged as the leading party in the June election after receiving almost 41% of the vote, currently has 258 deputies. After the recent resignation of one of its deputies, the CHP has 131 deputies, while the MHP and the HDP each have 80 deputies. Previous statements by the AK party and Erdoğan, the party's longtime leader, reveal that they support Parliament voting on an early election instead of Erdoğan having to make a call. In such a case, the AK party could be hoping that it would continue to remain in power until the early election, most likely to be set for November or late October. In yet another alternative scenario, the AK party may call on Parliament, which is in summer recess, to convene in an extraordinary session this week to vote for an early election. Should an early election be held following a call by Parliament, it is argued that the interim AK party government will keep power until the early election. The MHP announced, following coalition talks with the AK party on Monday, it would vote against an early election in Parliament. The MHP's no vote may push the AK party to have second thoughts about the option, as it would fail to win such a vote in Parliament should the other two opposition parties also vote against the proposal. Erdoğan might also avoid giving the CHP leader the mandate if Parliament is called to convene in an extraordinary session. But according to CHP's Altay, the two processes may run side by side, as both processes are independent of each other. While Parliament convenes, Erdoğan may also give the mandate to Kılıçdaroğlu, Altay said. According to Attila Kart, a former CHP deputy well versed in legal issues, the possibility of an interim government being formed after Erdoğan's call for an early election is more likely. Maintaining that the AK party finds the Parliament option risky because of MHP's negative stance, Kart told today's Zaman, as the AK party cannot afford to take the chance, they will unavoidably, it seems, follow Article 116 of the Constitution. Article 116 is about the formation of an interim election government based on the President's call for an early election.